In the context of Singapore's Personal Data Protection Act, PDPA, which of the following activities is likely to be considered a breach of the consent obligation? A. Collecting personal data directly from the individual for a stated purpose. B. Using personal data for a purpose for which consent has been obtained. C. Disclosing personal data to a third party for a purpose unrelated to the one for which consent was originally given. D. Destroying personal data that is no longer necessary for business purposes. Correct answer. C. Disclosing personal data to a third party for a purpose unrelated to the one for which consent was originally given. Under Japan's Act on the Protection of Personal Information, APPI, when can a business handle personal information without the individual's consent? A. For improving user experience on their website. B. For direct marketing purposes by affiliated companies. C. When it is necessary for the protection of human life, health, or property, and it is difficult to obtain the individual's consent. D. For transferring data to a third country with adequate data protection measures. Correct answer. C. When it is necessary for the protection of human life, health, or property, and it is difficult to obtain the individual's consent. Which principle under China's Personal Information Protection Law, people, requires data processors to minimize the duration of personal data retention? A. Principle of minimalization. B. Principle of specificity. C. Principle of transparency. D. Principle of limited retention. Correct answer. D. Principle of limited retention. Under Malaysia's Personal Data Protection Act, PDPA, what must the corporation ensure to comply with cross-border data transfer requirements? A. The data subject has given explicit consent to the transfer. B. The receiving country has similar or high standards of data protection. C. The transfer is necessary for the performance of a contract between the data subject and the corporation. D. All of the above. Correct answer. D. All of the above. Regarding South Korea's Personal Information Protection Act, PDPA, what is a unique requirement for processing sensitive personal information? A. Obtaining explicit consent from the data subject. B. Conducting a privacy impact assessment, PIA, before processing. C. Limiting the use to the specific purposes for which it was collected. D. Storing the data in a secured environment separate from other personal data. Correct answer. A. Obtaining explicit consent from the data subject. In the context of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation, APPI, Cross-Border Privacy Rules, CBPR, system, what is the primary purpose of a privacy policy statement? A. To detail the technical security measures implemented by the organization. B. To provide a comprehensive list of personal data collected by the organization. C. To describe how personal data is collected, used, and shared by the organization. D. To list all countries to which the organization may transfer personal data. Correct answer. C. To describe how personal data is collected, used, and shared by the organization. A technology company in Hong Kong uses biometric data for employee access control. Under the Personal Data Privacy Ordinance, PDPA, what is a crucial requirement for processing biometric data? A. Conducting regular security audits to ensure data safety. B. Obtaining written consent from employees before collecting their biometric data. C. Providing an alternative access control method that does not require biometric data. D. All of the above. Correct answer. D. All of the above. In the event of a data breach involving personal information, which of the following actions is not required under the Philippines Data Privacy Act, DPA? A. Notifying the National Privacy Commission immediately. B. Informing affected individuals within 72 hours. C. Publishing a notice of the breach on the organization's website. D. Obtaining consent from affected individuals before announcing the breach. Correct answer. D. Obtaining consent from affected individuals before announcing the breach. When transferring personal data from Thailand to a third country under Thailand's Personal Data Protection Act, PDPA, which of the following is not a valid mechanism to ensure adequate protection of the transferred data? A. Ensuring the receiving country has an adequate level of personal data protection. B. Using standard contractual clauses approved by the Personal Data Protection Committee. C. Obtaining explicit consent from the data subject for specific transfer. D. Verifying the receiving organization's participation in an international data protection agreement. Correct answer. D. Verifying the receiving organization's participation in an international data protection agreement. A multinational corporation with operations in Japan is considering implementing a system that monitors employee emails to prevent data breaches. According to Japan's Act on the Protection of Personal Information, APPI, which of the following steps is essential before implementing such a monitoring system? A. Notifying the Personal Information Protection Commission, PPC, about the monitoring system. B. Obtaining employee consent after explaining the purpose and scope of monitoring. C. Implementing the system without employee consent as long as it's for legitimate business interests. D. Only monitoring emails that are marked as business-related by employees. Correct answer. B. Obtaining employee consent after explaining the purpose and scope of monitoring. In China, a health app collects personal health information and intends to use it for research purposes. According to the Personal Information Protection Law, people, what must the app do to comply with the law? A. Anonymize the personal information before using it for research. B. Obtain separate consent for the use of personal information in research. C. Ensure the research is conducted within China. D. Provide opt-out options for users at any time during the research. Correct answer. B. Obtain separate consent for the use of personal information in research. A South Korean online gaming company plans to expand its services to minors. Under the Personal Information Protection Act, PDPA, which of the following measures must the company take to lawfully process the personal information of minors? A. Verify the age of users and obtain consent from a legal guardian for users under 14. B. Limit the collection of personal information to name and age for all minor users. Automatically anonymize the personal information of minors before processing. D. Ensure parental control features are available for all accounts held by minors. Correct answer. A. Verify the age of users and obtain consent from a legal guardian for users under 14. An Australian financial institution intends to transfer customer personal data to a data processing facility located in India. Under the Australian privacy principles, APPS, which of the following is a prerequisite for this cross-border transfer of personal data? A. The institution must conduct a privacy impact assessment, PDPA, specifically for the transfer. B. The data processing facility in India must adhere to the APPS or provide a comparable level of protection. C. Customers must be informed about the transfer, but consent is not required. D. The Australian Information Commissioner must approve the transfer. Correct answer. B. The data processing facility in India must adhere to the APPS or provide a comparable level of protection. An Indian IT services company plans to use automated decision-making processes, including profiling, to assess employee performance. Under India's Personal Data Protection Bill, what must the company ensure for compliance? A. Employees have the right to opt out of the automated decision-making process. B. The algorithm used for decision-making is publicly available. C. Human intervention is possible, and employees can request a review of automated decisions. D. Consent for automated decision-making is included in the employment contract. Correct answer. C. Human intervention is possible, and employees can request a review of automated decisions. A Hong Kong-based NGO intends to collect personal data for a public health survey. Under the Personal Data Privacy Ordinance, PDPA, which step is not necessary for compliance? A. Conducting a privacy impact assessment, PDPA, before the survey. B. Providing a privacy notice at the point of data collection. C. Obtaining explicit consent for each specific use of the data collected. D. Ensuring data is not transferred outside of Hong Kong without consent. Correct answer. A. Conducting a privacy impact assessment, PDPA, before the survey.